Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Plugged In from YAA Electric. Today, I have Justice with me yet again. My name is Justin Fisher. Justice, how are you doing?
I am doing good trying to beat the heat out here.
How hot is it over there?
Oh, okay. That was sorry. I had some technical issues over here.
Oh, it is 65 outside where I'm at. How hot is it in California
Let's
today?
see. In Sacramento right now, it is 81, and we're supposed to get to 107 today.
Ugh, I didn't even know it gets that hot in Sacramento. So this isn't
Yeah,
like this is inland.
yeah. Sacramento's in the valley, so we get it's much hotter here than on the coast or.
Ah, yes. Well, once again, we are making sure that our wonderful viewers out in YouTube world can see us because StreamYard has not been too nice to us lately. We got Igor in the chat, Jordan, Alex, Neil, John, Susanna, Sean. Let us know if you see us because we're about to start talking EVs. It looks like we've got about 20 viewers. Um, Yesterday, I was at Electrify America. Why? Because I took a nice 150-mile trip, and I was like, well, let's get some free electrons. And you know what happened? The first station that I went to, it was Electrify America. It had maybe 9 stalls at the station. 2 of the 9 stalls were working. I plugged in. It was 150 kilowatt, which my car accepts 230, and it was not going above 70 kilowatts. And it was like one of the only ones that was working, so it was pretty annoying. Um, yeah, and look at this comment. Justin needs to. That's funny. And so, anyways, I was sitting there and just like wondering if this is what it's like to drive like a Nissan Leaf because I was maxing out at like 60 kilowatts. It was not all that fun, but what I ended up doing was just adding 5% to my battery and driving on to the next Electrify America station 50 miles down the road on my way home. It was not a good experience. Do Tesla drivers experience that kind of thing at superchargers?
I have never seen superchargers that far down before. I think the most I've ever seen at any supercharging station was two down. Uh, when I first started driving, and particularly in Southern California, where the supercharger started, the worst you would ever see is you'd have to get in right next to somebody, so you were sharing a power, and that would have obviously you'd both charge much slower. Back in that was the worst, not what you've experienced there. That's insane.
Yeah, so I drove another 50 miles. I had plenty of charge, fortunately. Otherwise, I would have had to sit around for the whole, 50 minutes it would have taken to charge at 60 kilowatts. Um, I drove another 50 miles to the next Electrify America station, plugged in, and it worked just fine. But still, that's not an experience that anyone should have to go through. And this is why the White House has taken its initiative to install a national charging network to the next level. The last bipartisan infrastructure bill included $7.5 billion for a national charging network, which is supposedly going to have 500,000 charging stations. Everyone in EV world is asking, is this 500,000 level 3 fast chargers? Is this going to include level 2 chargers? Considering it's 500,000, I bet it's going to include level 2 and level 3, but still, the White House is giving us more details, more info about what is going to happen next. Now, Igor in the chat, let us know. Can you really not hear us? The rest of you guys, let us know. Nope. Okay, I think let us know in the chat. How's our stream quality today? It does matter. Let us know. Is it trash? Is it okay? Is it great? Let us know in the chat. Um, Speaking of gas prices, though, before we go further into this whole White House announcement, 4.99 a gallon is the national average. We didn't make it to $5 by Friday. Shame, shame. So, yeah.
Well, It's 6.69 an average here in Sacramento today.
Well, even here in the East Coast, diesel prices are now at $6 a gallon, and that's gonna affect all of us, even us EV drivers, when we go to the
Mhm.
grocery store. So, it's wild out there, but driving an EV, the savings are adding up even quicker with the way that gas prices are going out of control. Now, keep in mind, Justice, I know you still feel the effects of gas prices to some extent. I We also have a Subaru Forester, so we fill up that tank maybe once a month at this point. Most EV drivers in America still have a combustion vehicle in their household, so it's affecting everyone. Now it's looking like the White House is trying to accelerate the shift to electrification. Let me just dive right in and share what the latest updates are. Basically, they're telling us how they're going to allocate this $7.5 billion. But first, they have some requests of the automotive industry and EV experts to try to standardize the rollout of EV infrastructure. Now, Justice, based on your years of EV experience, why might it be beneficial or helpful? Why is it a good idea to standardize EV infrastructure in America? What problems have we had up to this point?
Well, it's the problem that you face, right? You have to go to Electrify America because Tesla superchargers don't fit your vehicle. Um, Somewhat the opposite too with Tesla. I mean, if I was near Electrify America in the middle of the country and Tesla didn't have a charger there, it would be like I can't go to Chevron because that nozzle doesn't fit into my gas tank thing. It's sort of a ridiculous thing to have these different standard ports. You need to be able to any charger just like you can pull into any gas station and know that you can charge up. And I would say that you could charge up at the maximum speed your vehicle would allow.
Yes, exactly. Your audio was breaking up just a little bit there. Yeah. So for Tesla drivers, Tesla's had a head start, like what, 12 years of the supercharger network roughly growing. Electrify America has been around for 4 years with actual stations. I know they were announced maybe 5 years ago. If you don't drive a Tesla, traveling cross country in America is not exactly easy. It's getting easier, but it's not easy. It's definitely not what you experience with just going to a gas station. However, I was talking to my wife about this yesterday. Is it worth it? For us and for her, her answer was unequivocally yes. It's totally worth the hassle, the little bit of extra planning that goes into road trips. Keep in mind, 90% of charging we just do at home in a garage. But when we take a trip once every few months, yeah, there's like, I don't know, 5 extra minutes of planning that goes into it. And each time we stop every 200 miles, sure, we're staying there for 20, 25 minutes at the charger. Is that extra time worth it? Well, we're saving about $175 per month now on fuel expenses. Not to mention, we love the drive, we love the tech, we love the styling of our Ionic 5. Basically, it's for us, it's totally worth the hassle, but there are still some hassles for EV drivers in America. So here's what the White House and Department of Transportation said in a press release yesterday about why they're doing what they're doing. They're issuing some minimum standards to help ensure that the national EV charging network is, quote, user friendly, reliable, and accessible to all, interoperable between different charging companies with similar payment systems, pricing information, similar charging speeds, and more. And then it says, I'll continue to quote, the proposed rule would establish the groundwork for states to build federally funded charging station projects across a national EV charging network. And then it goes on to say that no matter what kind of EV a user drives, what state they charge in, or what charging company they're a customer of, the minimum standards of these new rules that are going to be developed quickly will ensure a unified network of chargers with similar payment systems, pricing information, charging speeds, and more. Basically, they're trying to find a way to adopt the European standard, right? Because hasn't Europe kind of just gone all CCS plug? They're trying to accelerate plug and charge, which is something Tesla has that my car doesn't. It sounds like the US is, I mean, I'm sure the experts who are behind the scenes are taking a look at what has been successful in Europe, right?
Yeah, they're looking at it. We just have a different sort of mindset in America about free enterprise and government dictating to them what they can and can't do. So it makes it a bit harder for these universal systems to cooperate with a free enterprise.
Yeah, for sure. I look forward to plug and charge becoming the norm. I believe that my Ioniq 5 could hopefully someday receive it over the air update if my car is indeed capable of that like they say it is. Haven't seen it in real life yet. But I mean, imagine if I don't know, every 25 miles on the interstate, every no more than every 50 miles on the interstate, you had I don't know, 16 plugs at a charging station that is no less than 150 kilowatts. To me, that sounds like a good goal for 2025 to 2030, which is when this funding is going to be really being spent. Every state in the nation currently has just 1.5 months left to submit their plan for how they want to spend their allocation of this charging infrastructure money. They have until August 1st to submit an official plan for how they're going to spend the charging money. Now, I think some states have taken this pretty seriously, but my own state of West Virginia, obviously EVs make up less than 0.5% of market share here. I'm a part of that 0.5%. They didn't have a hearing on this until last month, so I think they're probably scrambling to figure this out last minute. I'm sure states like Texas, California, Florida, where EV adoption is accelerating much quicker, they're probably thinking a lot harder about how they're going to allocate this funding. Would you agree?
Probably, though I would also say that I don't think places like California should be getting these funds.
Yeah, you're
We
right about.
we have the infrastructure. Like, why not spend it where it needs to go instead of evenly splitting it? Like, why does California need the money to build in an infrastructure that it already has?
Yeah, and you could make the case that there's so much demand for EV infrastructure in California that the economics already can make sense. At least it's much easier for the economics to make sense in California to install charging infrastructure than it does in a state like West Virginia, Tennessee, those states, because 42% of EVs in America are in California, but just one state. That's a huge statistic right there.
But that's also
Up,
because we have the infrastructure. So
yes, you're right. You're right. Did the chicken or the egg come first?
yeah,
Well, yeah. Uh, let's see what else this announcement has. The National Park Service, too, is looking at expanding charging access in rural America. Got a new national park just 1 hour north of me here, and that'd be awesome if we had some charging infrastructure. Clean school buses. So an electric school bus costs between $200,000 and $400,000. That's amazing. That's a lot of money. I don't know about that. But they do save thousands of dollars per month if they electrify versus spending money on $6 a gallon diesel fuel. When you're looking at the amount of time required to recoup your investment and break even, the more miles you drive, the quicker that's going to happen. So, fleet vehicles and school buses are fleet vehicles. Electrifying school buses, despite the added upfront cost, the numbers said an electric school bus on average costs about $120,000 more than a diesel school bus. So, 120 grand more. That's a buttload more money. However, when you're driving so many thousands of miles every year in a school bus, you're going to make up that cost quicker, and then you're going to be just looking at savings for years to come. Do you think
yeah,
electric school buses are a good idea? I do.
I do. I mean, an electric school bus makes perfect sense. It's an EV is better in city rather than highway driving. You put some governments are known to put a lot of upfront money and then run things into the ground before spending it again. So it's a good investment there. It's the perfect environment for an EV.
Yeah, a fascinating statistic I saw was that heavy duty trucks, or not we're not talking about light duty vehicles, so big rigs, school buses, just all those big massive diesel and sometimes gasoline consuming vehicles, they make up just 10% of vehicles on American roads. Still 10% is a lot. Um, Even though they only make up 10% of vehicles on American roads, they make up 30% of emissions from the transportation sector. So electrifying heavy duty trucks and buses would be a big step in the right direction of just cleaning up the air, whether it's for climate change or simply for human health, smog, asthma, things like that. Kind of,
This is where I always come at it from. If you're not into the climate change thing, fine, but which do you want to be locked in a garage with? An ICE
yeah,
vehicle or an EV running with you
yeah,
sitting behind it? I mean, come on, there's a human health aspect to this.
yeah, for sure. It's not all about warming the temperature by 1.5 degrees Celsius, although I care a lot about that. Human health is a huge part of it. So we'll see what happens with this White House news. Even the Department of Defense is getting involved. Um, there have been some talks about how even like electrifying military vehicles may have some strategic advantages because you don't have to haul fuel around. Just got to find a place to plug in, or I guess haul batteries around. I don't know, but we don't go deep into it. But
Yeah,
those
yeah.
those
That,
aspects of the plan are just fascinating to me too. $7.5 billion. We'll see how it gets allocated. We're going to learn a lot more after August 1st because pretty quickly, the Department of Energy and the joint office with the Department of Transportation, they plan on announcing how the states are going to receive this money once the plans are submitted. I hope my own state does a good job. Justice, sounds like you hope your state maybe forgets to apply, but
yeah, yeah. I would
yeah.
just rather see that money go to states like yours that have don't have the infrastructure there. I'd
Yeah,
rather allocate it in that way.
where I live in a pretty rural area, I would say diesel is king here, even though it's $6 a gallon. I have not had anyone give me dirty looks driving my EV around or say anything negative. I've had, no joke, at this point, probably 50 people in my small town just walk up to me and ask about it and say they like it. They wish they were more affordable. They wish they could find one at a dealer because, we're a small town with like 3 dealerships. That's a lot of dealerships per capita. And they know that there's no EVs at these dealerships. So I think if the infrastructure gets there, if inventory can come up, supply chain issues get worked out, hopefully by 2024 at this point, EVs may really make it to even middle America and not just the coasts, which would be a great thing, right?
Yeah, I would love to see more options out there for everybody. For those who want to drive EVs, I'd love to see them out there and as readily available as an ICE vehicle.
Yeah. Let's change gears quite a bit and talk a little bit about Lightyear. Justice, do you know anything about Lightyear? Have you been following Lightyear's development? I believe they're from the Netherlands, right? They're a
Yeah,
Dutch
yeah.
automaker. What are your thoughts on Lightyear's product development? Just tell us a little bit about them.
They seem a little pie in the sky for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think solar is where it is. It's supposed to give you another, was it 100? What is it?
So what makes Lightyear's prototype EV special is that it's got a big old solar panels on the roof. It is pretty expensive, but they're now claiming 450 miles on a
440.
charge. Or
Is that
four
what?
is it 441?
I think so. Well, yeah, but they're saying 620 miles between charges with the extra solar added.
Ah,
And I just don't, there's no way. Even if you're in California, Florida, or the middle of the desert, I, I don't see them getting that much range out of that solar. That's where I see the overblown in their statements,
okay,
according to
so
their website.
yeah, I've got the latest numbers pulled up because they've recently updated all of their info, as they're getting close to production. Now, before we talk more about Lightyear, let's go ahead and just share the fact that it's supposed to cost roughly $265,000. Yep, $265,000. The Lightyear Zero is what it's called. Used to be called the Lightyear One, and they decided to change the name to the Lightyear Zero. Strange. Maybe they're going to sell zero of them. Just kidding. Don't want
They
that to happen. Just
they
kidding.
don't they don't want one emission. They want zero emissions.
Yeah. So $265,000. I'm never going to own a Lightyear Zero, but I still think it's pretty cool. I hope the proof of concept works and they can then do what Tesla did and build more affordable vehicles. But it sounds like in EV world, we have a new acronym, SEVs. That's what Electric, the good friends over at Electric, are saying. SEV stands for solar EVs now, and I'm a fan of that. I would love to see more solar EVs, but I agree with what I think you're saying, Justice. It doesn't like for where I live, having solar panels on my roof would not make much sense because it's so cloudy and my house has trees surrounding it on all sides. I think it's cool though, and I hope it works, but they're claiming, and this is a huge discrepancy. They're claiming that without solar, the battery itself is a 60 kilowatt hour battery pack on the Lightyear Zero. Just the 60 kilowatt hour battery can deliver 288 miles on the European WLTP cycle. That's their certification cycle, like our EPA cycle. However, they say with the solar on the roof, the Lightyear can drive up to 432 miles. That's amazing because I know a thing or two about solar efficiency. And the best solar panels that are commercially available right now are like 22%, maybe 24%, the best. The math doesn't really add up. That would be amazing. But I mean, that would be like driving it a few miles per day, letting like parking it in the sun for 12 hours a day to get all the sunlight, barely driving it, maybe. Like how do you do the math? I don't know. Does it make sense to you?
No, no, that's where I'm saying it's pie in the sky. I don't see the efficiency in any other numbers anywhere else in the industry. Um, I don't see those numbers working out at all. I would love it if it was true.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Who doesn't want a car that you can power by solar?
So in the European market, the Hyundai Ioniq 5, instead of coming with a glass roof like what my Limited has, it has the option of coming with a solar roof, but it adds what's it like 1 or 2 miles per day in the sun.
Which is around what Elon says solar would do.
Yeah,
Kind of believe his math. He's
yeah,
good at that.
yeah.
Um, and that's more. Yeah, of course, that's what it would get. This this other math, I don't know where they're coming up with it.
But we wish them the best, and I hope it works out because I'd love to see solar powered cars on American roads. What if General Motors and Ford bring us solar powered cars in like 5 to 10 years? Wouldn't that be amazing? I don't think it's gonna happen, but it would be amazing.
Seems as likely as solar roads were, if you
Oh,
remember that.
yes, I do remember that. Now I forgot to mention Justice because this is where it gets like even more pie in the sky. It's worth bringing up. Lightyear has been teasing a second model. So the first one, the one that's coming out soon for $265,000, right? It's got all the fancy stuff. It's basically a Lucid with solar panels on top. I'm gonna go ahead and just say that. But their second model that they are teasing, they say will cost around $32,000.
So
That's
they're
what
going to
Lightyear
have
says.
they have a 220,000 and a 32,000.
Yeah.
Sure, sure.
I mean, maybe they'd be making $150,000 in profits from every Lightyear Zero that they sell, and they would use that 150,000 in straight profits to fund a $32,000 solar powered car. That's cool.
Yeah, if
Maybe
I
maybe
would,
it works.
all for that. Very sort of, lack of a better term, a very socialist system. These people can pay for those cars. Fine. If that's the way the company wants to run it, I'm all for that. All the more $30,000 EVs, the better.
Yeah. What's going on with Tesla's uh National Highway Traffic Safety Administration investigation? Why is there an investigation? What's going on? We've got some new Tesla news for everyone.
Yeah, so they're looks like they're ramping up their investigation still from them driving into the parked emergency vehicles. I
Ah,
don't know why it was specifically emergency vehicles all the time, but this investigation opened in August of 21. So they're ramping it up more now. I know the initial data that came out, Tesla said showed that Teslas on autopilot were less likely to crash than driven by people. Um, I've driven with people. I kind of believe that, but there are some pretty serious issues with obviously the phantom braking is part of it, but then specifically running into fire trucks, parked stationary fire trucks, and for some reason Autopilot was just not seeing those. My guess is, and this is just a guess, I don't know, but that they're parked parallel, and the car sees the lights as stoplights and thinks it can go just straight underneath them. That's
Hmm.
my guess into what it's going to come out as. But that's to everyone's anti-Tesla full self-driving point of view. This is why radar is a good idea
Yeah.
and not relying strictly on vision.
Yeah, I mean, it's foggy or misty quite often where I live, and I'm
Mhm.
thankful for the radar on my car because I mean, it's not, just about self-driving and stuff like that. Obviously, the Ioniq 5 that I have does not have self-driving, but it's also when it comes to, safety assist, like cross traffic assist, all that stuff is gonna also rely on radar in my car, and I think, I'm not an engineer, but I think it would be a good idea to have at least forward-facing radar.
I, everyone knows I'm a Tesla fanboy. I love Tesla. I love Musk. I
Tesla
love,
got me into EVs.
yeah, yeah, I love it. But I disagree with Elon on this one. I think radar is needed for all those conditions that vision just can't. I mean, what we have to slow down in the fog, right? You can't do a camera-based system where fog can actually build up on the lenses of the camera even more. Um, I just don't think that that really works. You need a combination, I think, to get full self-driving realistically. I think that's probably why we saw the reintroduction of the patent of the radar from Tesla. I think this investigation probably has a lot to do with that, and I think there'll probably be end up being a recall for it, and the fix will be putting these radar chips back in.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about the NHTSA getting closer to an actual recall, but Justice, what's Tesla's magic trick that makes fixing a recall a whole lot easier?
Well, now this one will be harder
It
for the
would, okay.
vehicles that don't have the radar in them,
Oh,
but
you're right. Yeah, they would. Oh, okay. So I was gonna say over the air updates, but you're saying that maybe service center visits might be involved for
yeah.
all 850,000 vehicles involved?
So they turned off the radar for a whole bunch of vehicles. So that's just going to be all over the air updates. But
Okay.
we have a whole model year and a half that don't have radar in them.
Yes,
So
yes.
that is going to have to be an actual real world. I think Tesla's first real world service center recall, where you actually are going to have to uh, probably take it in or have them come out and install that radar. So this may end up being Tesla's first actual real recall.
Wow. Well, that would be interesting. Maybe that's why Elon Musk was recently saying that he intends to make the service center experience a whole lot better.
Yeah, well, yeah, it needs to be a lot better. Tesla's customer service is somewhat lacking.
It looks like the NHTSA said, quote, they're upgrading the investigation to a engineering analysis to extend the existing crash analysis, evaluate additional data sets, perform vehicle evaluations, and to explore the degree of which autopilot and associated Tesla systems may exacerbate human factors or behavioral safety risks by undermining the effectiveness of the driver's supervision. Basically, they're taking the investigation to the next steps, and it may lead to a recall. I don't
Well,
know.
and you know my opinion on this. So I this is one of
Everybody
my
has recalls. Is that the opinion?
no, no. Well, I mean, yes, everyone has recalls. And if you have to take it in, this will be the first Tesla recall you actually have to take the vehicle in for. But people are not using self-driving correctly. It is a beta and it requires you to have your hands on the wheel and paying attention. And people are cheating the system. You can buy devices that trick Tesla into thinking you have your hands on the wheel, why we're allowing these devices to go out there. But
Yeah.
But right now they're in the data collection phase, and we're trying to teach the vehicle how to drive, and people are just napping or doing X-rated things in the vehicle while it's on autopilot. It's not meant for this. Is it?
Yeah.
And absolutely, Tesla doesn't say, "Oh yeah, just take your hands off the wheel and take a nap and read a book." They say you have to have your hands on the wheel and pay attention, and they have all kinds of safeties to make sure. If your hands aren't on the wheel, it beeps, it vibrates, it gives you two warnings, and then it turns it off and slows the car down, parks it, and you can't have it on again. But people are, to me, I equate it with self-driving right now is the 16-year-old in the vehicle with a learner's permit. You have to have a licensed over 18 driver in the vehicle with that person. That's that because it's just that person's learning. That's what self-driving is now. It's supposed to be learning. We're treating it as if this is the Jetsons, and amazingly, there's a lot of problems with it. Not
Yeah.
not a surprise.
It's not a surprise for those of us who are into learning about these kinds of technological developments, but it may be a surprise for someone who normally drives a BMW 330i and they're like, "Hey, I'm going to go buy a Model Y or a Model 3." And they pop on the full self-driving they just paid $12,000 for and expect it to do fancy schmancy things that it can't do yet. That
Yeah, they're not thinking of it as they have to teach it.
mhm.
That's this whole thing. Tesla's a data company. It's not a car company. It's not an EV. It's not a solar. It's a data company, and it's gathering all this data to one day be able to roll it out. But if we're not teaching the vehicles correctly, junk data is junk data.
Yeah. Tesla notoriously doesn't have a marketing department. They don't spend money on any of that. I can't help but wonder if maybe they don't need a marketing department, but they
PR
should
department.
yeah, they should consider having some kind of public education wing to maybe prevent some of these issues from becoming bigger problems.
I mean, I think the problem with Tesla having a PR department is 70% of the time would be to clarify Elon Musk's tweets.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and we're not going to go into that, but I agree
No,
with you. I agree with you. Maybe we'll finish up today's show by talking about an interesting new revision from Boston Consulting Group's EV data predictions. The wonderful crystal ball from Boston Consulting Group. So back in 2021, their estimate was that by 2035, globally, fully electric vehicles would make up 45% of new vehicle market share globally by 2035. Now, 1 year later, they've revised their estimate upward by quite a lot. So now Boston Consulting Group says that by 2035, they anticipate 59% of global new vehicle market share will be fully electric. I'm not talking plug in hybrids or just regular hybrids, fully electric. That's quite a big revision. Likewise, they anticipate that by 2025, just a few years from now, fully electric vehicles will make up 20% of global new vehicle sales. That's up from their prediction last year of 11%. These are big jumps in their predictions. Are you surprised? Or do you think this is an accurate prediction? I mean, we don't know what the future holds, but that's a pretty big jump. 59% by 2035.
well, I think that jump has a lot to do with all the laws being passed around the country and the world of, banning new ICE vehicle sales. So it makes sense that if
That's true.
If California by 2030 no longer allows the selling of new ICE vehicles or lawn care, um, then of course that will jump the EV numbers. As more states, more countries start adopting these laws, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Now, whether production can keep up with there, whether infrastructure's there, you know, whether we actually meet those goals,
Or if anyone can afford these vehicles.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Eh,
for sure. And for further perspective, in 2021, globally, EV market share was 6%. So they're saying 6% last year to 20% in 2035. I mean, 20% in 2025, 39% in 2030, and then 59% in 2035. I mean, I agree with what John said in the chat. Not with this recession. A lot of it's going to depend on macro factors that even automakers can't directly affect. I mean, what's the economy going to be like? What's global is global peace going to still exist, 5 years from now? We're not going to talk about that, but things like that are outside of automakers' control are going to affect whether or not these goals are feasible. The economy is going to have to stay strong enough for people to afford the added upfront cost of an electric vehicle. Hopefully in 2030, there is no added upfront cost to an electric vehicle. But that's not the direction the numbers are headed in 2022, unfortunately. Justice, did you have any other interesting EV thoughts or news from this week? Just anything that you might have come across that you want to share with the world?
I'm just looking forward to learning more about this Fisker pair. Now that
Oh
they're
yeah.
saying it's going to be $30,000. So very interested. Being built by Foxconn, who builds all of Apple's products, and then the rollout of the Apple CarPlay, their new CarPlay. Seems like there's some pairing up going. No pun intended. Pairing up going on up there. So I'm very curious to see how this goes. I think Fisker announcing their 30,000, and then two Chinese EVs at 30,000, and now the Chevy Bolt at 26. This is the price war I've been waiting for. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that unfold, and really hope there's a race to the bottom here, and I think that helps that 2035 prediction an awful lot too.
Yeah, I really hope affordable EVs become far more common. I believe the Fisker Ocean is going to make its debut in about 6 months. Magna over in Europe is building the Fisker Ocean. They build the Jaguar I-Pace. They build a few vehicles for BMW, and not to mention components for dozens of other vehicles. It looks like the Fisker Ocean might have some solid build quality from the get-go because of who they've contracted to build the vehicle. I wonder if Foxconn's gonna be good at building cars. Does Foxconn build cars currently? I know they
They
make the
do.
iPhone.
They've built three other vehicles in China already, and have been for years. So they're in it. I think Fisker's model is very interesting. They're one of the startups. They're not actually building their own vehicles, so they don't have to go through all these plants. They're using established manufacturers to build it, and I'm curious to see how that works out for them. I think it's going to work out really well and be a real shortcut for them, so they don't have to do what Tesla did and learn how to build vehicles first.
Yeah.
I mean, Elon said it's easier to build and launch a rocket than it is to build a passenger vehicle.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that could be true. I mean,
Well,
scaling up
he does
economies of
both.
scale. Yeah, economies of scale are tough
Yeah,
from the
yeah,
production side of everything. But Elon Musk would know because he does both.
yeah. But I mean, I think this is brilliant of Fisker to reach out like that. And I was very surprised when they decided that the pair would go with Foxconn. So they're not even just sticking with one manufacturer. They're going to whoever can build their vehicles and sourcing it out.
Mhm.
That's a very interesting way to do it, and I'm curious to see their success rate.
And not to mention that the Fisker pair will be built at Foxconn's new factory in Ohio, which they
Mhm.
bought from Lordstown. If you if you remember, Lordstown was slash is developing an electric truck, but it kind of petered out, and we'll see if it sees the day of light. The light of day. I hope it happens. I hope it happens because electric trucks would be huge sellers here in the US. Um, maybe not in Europe where you've got narrow roads, but 15 minutes from now, the Ray and Zach show will be having a special guest today. Hopefully we can catch you guys over there. Don't forget to head over to that channel in 15 minutes. Catch a drink of coffee and take a bathroom break, and then head back over to YouTube World. Okay. But thank you so much for joining us today. Next week on Wednesday, we've got a very special guest. The CEO of Recurrent Auto is going to be joining us on the show Wednesday next week. Recurrent Auto is looking at how they're going to use, well, they're actually far into this already. They're using machine learning to basically become the Carfax of electric vehicles, where you can learn about the battery's health, how the electric vehicles, electrical components have been treated during ownership, all of that to benefit the used vehicle market. So that if you're shopping for a pre-owned electric vehicle and say, I don't know, 2030, it's not so much of a guessing game. Recurrent Auto is thinking about how they can use machine learning to basically let you know about EV battery health, even if you've never driven the car before. It's like Carfax for EVs. So Wednesday, be here. It'll be a great talk with their CEO. Thank you so much, everyone. And the Ray and Zach show, check it out in 15 minutes. Thank you, Justice.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to be here.